Welcome back to Inside the Humidor. I'm Josh Eagle, alongside of my colleagues and aficionados Ed Brandyberry and Josh Mills. We're coming live from the Smokestack Everything Tobacco in Moon Township, inside the Humidor, inside the Cigar Lounge. Today we're going to talk a bit about shapes and sizes of cigars, some different wrappers, and do a little bit about cigar etiquette, so stay tuned. Ed, welcome.
Thank you.
What are we smoking today?
I've got a Perdomo, which shouldn't surprise anyone. The blend here is the Habano blend. It's an all Nicaraguan cigar with a Corojo wrapper. Very delightful. It's from the Jalapa and Esteli regions of Nicaragua.
Josh, what are you smoking?
Got the Oliva Serie V Lancero, one of my all-time favorites. Another Nicaraguan Puro Habano sun-grown wrapper. And a classic 7x38 Lancero size.
Today I'm smoking the Room 101 Master Collection. It's got a San Andrean wrapper, my favorite wrapper, the Mexican tobacco. It's got a Honduran binder, and it's got Honduran, Mexican, and Nicaraguan fill. I think it's a great balance. Fantastic on the palate. We're going to get into what all that meant right there. So let's jump right into size and shape. First, we're going to talk about Parejo versus Figurado. Now, Parejo, Ed, is what?
Parejo is a cigar that has parallel sides. It doesn't usually have any, well, it would not have any tapering to be a Parejo. So that you have the basic barrel shape or box pressed nowadays cigar would be considered a Parejo.
And all the cigars that we're smoking would be considered a Parejo. And all the cigars that you would find traditionally, when you picked up a cigar and you found one, you know, a Parejo, very recognizable.
Yes.
So what is a Figurado, Josh, and what makes that unique?
Well, Figurado is going to be anything that's not a Parejo. So anything with tapered sides, torpedoes, pyramids, that kind of thing. Right here is a nice pyramid that flares out pretty dramatically. You can see here at the top, it's if you cut it off from right here, it kind of look like a Toro, and then as it comes down, it flares out to a nice pyramid shape. So that's an excellent example of a Figurado. Another one's the torpedo here. Mm-hmm. Now we picked these ones because we feel Nick Perdomo makes some of the most bold and shapely Figurados in the business.
Definitely.
So this comes to a nice pointy, distinguishable torpedo shape there, as opposed to like a Bellicoso, which is another similar size, comes to a more rounded, pointed edge there.
Here's another brand that makes something that would be recognizable as well.
Yes, this is a La Flor Dominicana. What they did on this one is they have a unique design. I think they actually have patented it. It's called a chisel tip. So this is a box pressed. I'd almost want to, this would be a Parejo, would it not?
No, except the chisel
because it
changes
tapers.
it. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, it tapers off. It's it's a chiseled kind of torpedo style. Comes to a pointed chisel edge there. So that's definitely an interesting size. Again, comes to the kind of pointed torpedo style edge, but comes out to a chisel flat end there. Ed, why don't you tell us about the story behind that and what the...
I don't know how accurate the story is, but it seems to be that
we'll call it a legend.
Lito Gomez, this is the legend connected with it.
We don't want to go Brian Williams route, you know what I mean?
We understand that
stories.
he likes to chew his cigars and went to his rollers and wanted to find out if they could actually make a cigar that was already chewed down.
That's a disgusting way to put it.
Yeah, disgusting. No. Fortunately, no one had to chew it before it's made. And so they actually, I think, shows the expertise of his rollers in that they're able to make that cigar.
And right now, it's proprietary to a Flor Dominicana, and it's made this way every time. It's nice. It's a good smoke. Actually gives you
that's one of their bigger
different
chisels,
perspective,
too.
right?
His son's first blend.
Well, we talked a bit about the shapes of the cigars now, but at the beginning of the show, guys, we talked a lot about what was on our cigars and what was inside of our cigars. And I know we've touched on that briefly in shows past, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into the wrappers of the cigars that we're smoking and how much that makes a difference. Josh, in your opinion, wrapper on the cigar that you're smoking right now, being in a narrow gauge, and we'll get into gauge in just a little bit in detail, but being a narrow gauge cigar, you see how that the wrapper is what's on the outside of the cigar. So the entire width of this that's on the outside that we actually put in our lips is going to be the wrapper. And Josh, explain a little bit about the importance, and then talk about the importance of it on the size that you're smoking right there, the Lancero.
So the opinion in the industry kind of varies depending on who you talk to, but it's the flavor you get from the wrapper is disproportionate to the amount of tobacco that it makes up. So as you can imagine, even on a skinny cigar like this, that outside wrapper is paper thin, and you've got the rest of the filler and binder tobacco in there making up the rest of the diameter. But still, despite how little of the tobacco the wrapper is, estimations are between 25 to 75%, depending on who you ask. So on a small ring gauge cigar like this, the amount of flavor you're getting from the wrapper is going to come more into play because it's a higher percentage of the total amount of tobacco, adding to the fact that Josh said this is the outermost part, this is what's touching your lips. So the flavor of that wrapper is really, really important when you're getting the total flavor of the cigar.
So once we have a nice wrapper on the outside, and that's usually A-grade tobacco, and what A-grade tobacco will be the finest leaves, and you need a lot of elasticity to be able to make a good wrap. So wrapper tobacco, the A-grade tobacco, it's the top of the line tobacco. It's the actual leaves that they pick specifically to be wrappers because they feel that they are the best tobacco that they have grown. And you guys were in Nicaragua, and this shade right here, the Connecticut shade wrapper, this particular one is in Ecuadorian Connecticut. The other would be grown in the United States in the state of Connecticut. Where it gets the shade from is because it has to have a lot of cloud cover, actually be shielded from the sun, because the wrapper will gain nutrients and it'll get darker naturally. So in Ecuador, they have 300 plus days of shade, which allows them in Ecuador to grow this. But out in the fields in Nicaragua, Nick had a hard time growing this. Why?
Well, the leaves, from what I understand from him, is the leaves were so full of nutrients, and the Nicaraguan soil is so rich that the leaves were actually just too thick. They wouldn't work to wrap a cigar with. And quite honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know many other uses for Connecticut seed.
No, it's not used in the fill.
It's not used in
it's
filler.
Specifically
it's rarely
a wrapper
used in
seed.
a binder.
Right, exactly.
And so...
so about wrappers, see, that's where the crazy differences start to come into play. You have just this one specific seed that can be grown either in Ecuador or Connecticut that can't be grown in Nick Perdomo's field, even though that they tried. Now, on a larger gauge cigar like you have, Ed, what do you think the balance of wrapper to filler would be compared to Josh's Lancero?
Wow, I mean, I'd have a lot less influence. The wrapper would have a lot less influence on this blend because I've got 60 gauge or 60 64s. So, you're talking over 3/4 of an inch in diameter here, where he's talking about something that's about 5/8 of an inch in diameter. So we've got a big difference in tobacco here. I've got so much more tobacco if you look at this compared to that. This cigar is going to have a lot more filler and decreased amount of influence by that wrapper taste.
Well, I'm going to argue, and this is why this comes up to so much opinion, I'm going to argue then, well, if I have more surface area to be in my mouth on a 60 gauge cigar, like mine is as well, you have this much surface area of taste, I have this much surface area of taste, and for my palate, and you guys know this very well, I'm a stickler for my wrappers, and I can taste them almost instantaneously on my palate. So to me, when I put a cigar in my mouth, even on the cold draw, I can pretty much gauge if I'm going to like this cigar or not. And it's going to be based strictly on the wrapper because I haven't even lit the cigar yet. So the taste in my mouth is why I think you get such a huge range, because I think Nick Perdomo says it's like 25%.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, he's on the lower end.
But overall...
He's on the low end.
Overall, what you're looking for in a cigar is balance.
Yes.
You want the wrapper and the filler to be in harmony so that nothing is overpowering the other. So it's working together. So if you need more power on the wrapper because maybe you have a less balanced fill, you need to balance it out with something that's going to be stronger on the palate, like the Maduro wrapper, extra aging, extra fermentation, bring out that sweetness to be able to match and pair maybe some stronger, more peppery tobaccos inside of the cigar. So we talked a little bit about the wrappers that we're smoking and how a wrapper would make up the cigar. So basically you have the wrapper, you have the binder, which is a rougher leaf, usually a lower graded tobacco that has either a toothier or a different texture to it so that this can adhere to it, because again, we don't use any chemicals. The only thing, the pectin on the top, to put the top cap on, a fruit-based glue, is the only additive to the cigar, and we cut that off. You know, it'd still be some on the shoulder, but that's just holding it down together.
Right.
So nothing else is holding it on here except for the binder. So you have a rougher, holds all that filler inside. And there's a few techniques. Josh, talk a little bit about the techniques on the filler, how they make the filler of the cigar. Maybe some, you know, the bunch versus accordion versus maybe something to be en tubo.
Yeah, so there's a couple different methods of varying, you know, difficulty and rarities in the industry, and a lot of times they'll use the different methods if they want to achieve a tighter draw versus a looser draw, how much time they want their wrappers and how skilled their wrappers are. But basically you have the, one of the most common is going to be the accordion or book method they call it, and you basically have the tobacco folded up in there like a book. It's going to create a very loose kind of open draw to it. It's one of the fastest and easiest methods for wrapping a cigar, versus another version which is the en tubo, where they essentially roll the tobacco into like a bunch of like mini tubes, like it sounds. It goes in that way. It creates a denser, oftentimes a little more strict draw to it. It's generally regarded as being a more difficult and challenging method of wrapping or bunching the tobacco. Those are the two most commons. You've got a couple other ones thrown in there, but those are what most of the cigars are going to be.
And that's what most of the cigars you're going to find. And sometimes I've noticed on some things that were en tubo would be you get a nice chance of the ash is going to hang on a lot longer because you know the scrolling is going to go all the way through the cigar.
Right.
And in the book, which is what most, the accordion, the bunch, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be in a lot of cigars nowadays, and they still smoke great.
It saves
give you a nice
money.
long off. It saves money, saves time.
money and labor because you can usually churn out more cigars that way. I'm not saying they're lesser cigars, but it is a different approach to making a cigar.
Well, there's another popular way out there, guys, that has actually made a huge impact on the cigar industry. It just recently was acquired by Swisher International, Drew Estate Cigars, and their infusions. This is an acid Cuba Cuba. Acid, one of the top-selling cigars in the world, uses a flavor-enhanced or infusion inside of the wrapper of the cigar. They usually don't, they leave the rest of the cigar natural.
I'm not positive. I think it probably depends on the particular blend, just like any other. But they apply these botanicals and other kinds of flavorings to their cigars, and other people use them in other ways. Like you'll have you can have a premium cherry cigar. You can have a premium cigar that has a little bit of grape to it. They're still considered premium cigars because in our industry, those are handmade cigars versus something that's cranked out by a machine.
You know, still with an all-natural product. They're just actually
Right.
using the growing process to, the wrappers are actually fermented with these other, and actually takes on the qualities of those other botanicals and those other oils.
Right.
And it makes a really unique smoking experience that people, you know, really start, beginners especially, really take to it, where you're making a jump maybe from cigarette smoking or from smoking a White Owl into the world of premium cigars. It actually works as a good jump off. We can argue if it's a real cigar or not a real cigar, but I'm going with it's a real cigar. Josh, what do you think?
Sure.
A lot of long-time smokers don't care for the infusion process, don't think of it as a real cigar. I just think it's important to note that there's a difference between this cigar and a Philly Blunt or a Peach White Owl.
Absolutely.
This is a, you know, like you said, a handmade, hand-rolled product that just happens to have, maybe it has a honey-dipped wrapper on it to create some sweetness on the lips. Maybe they use coffee or something else as, you know, to create an infusion process. It goes back to the showcasing the uniqueness of tobacco and the fact that it, you know, the reason we can keep cigars for so long is because it takes on water. Well, it'll take on anything. I've read about people doing their own infusion processes of, you know, taking a shot glass, filling it with Jack Daniels or something, putting it in their humidor and creating their own infused cigars. So.
Right.
Kind of showcases the uniqueness of the tobacco plant itself, I do consider them real cigars. Whether or not you like them is up to you, but you can't just say that it's a junk cigar. It doesn't count as a premium product, because it absolutely is.
And they're well made and well constructed.
Yes, they
Just
are.
the flavor isn't for everybody, but
No.
I still use it as a great jump off tool.
But not everyone is in love with a Connecticut seed wrapper, or not everyone likes a peppery taste of Nicaraguan tobacco. So we're going back to personal likes and dislikes.
Absolutely.
Not everyone likes jalapeno on their cigar, or
Hey,
or on their
it's out
burger.
there, right? And the jalapeno infusion's been done.
Right.
So
Right.
there's a lot of crazy things, and like Josh was saying, the tobacco plant being so unique that after you cut it from the stalk, it actually still will take on moisture, so it will absorb. And there's some cigars on the market that have the branding of top liquor companies like the Maker's Mark and the Grand
That's
Marnier
right.
and the rum and the 40 Creek whiskey. They're all Ted's cigars, and they're a handmade product that was infused with those particular spirits,
Right.
and they make for a unique smoking experience,
do.
which covers a lot of different palates. So, from there, let's talk a little bit about the sizes of cigars. Now, when you're in a cigar shop and you're brick and mortar and you're looking around and you see a blend of cigars. Well, Ed is smoking a different, what we call a blend of cigar. The blend that he has would be the Perdomo Habano with the Corojo wrapper, and that is a
Yes.
unique blend. And within that blend family, there are other sizes which we call Vitola.
Right.
So you'll have the same blend, the same packaging, the same box, but you'll have a different size or Vitola to that blend.
Yes.
So some of the traditional sizes, the most popular size in the industry right now, I would say it would be the Toro. The Toro is traditionally a 6-inch, 50 ring gauge cigar. Now ring gauge, Josh. When I say it's a 50 ring gauge, what does that mean exactly?
So ring gauge is measured in 64ths of an inch. So if you had, for example, a cigar that was, a 6 by 64, it would be exactly 1 inch in diameter. So when he says this would be a 6 by 50, so it's 6 inches this way, and 64ths of an inch in diameter. So this would be the Toro, like you were saying, the most popular. Another example would be a Robusto, which is a 5-inch by 50 cigar. We have a Lancero, which is what I was smoking. This is a 7.5 by 38, oftentimes between 38 and 42. And this is a Churchill, which is a 7 by 42, traditionally.
Traditionally, and those vary.
748.
Yeah, 48.
7 by 48, yeah.
Yeah.
And the traditional has kind of gone. Toro now is used pretty liberally between 50 and 54 ring gauge,
Even 56.
up to a 50. So all of these sizes and terms are used very liberally. They're not to be followed to the traditional anymore. A 660, very popular size right now. That's what Ed started with smoking. That would be almost an inch around, 64ths of an inch and 6 inches long. That's within the last 5 years of a trend. You can even get crazier. Ed, what's this one here? This Asylum.
Well, this is the Asylum 80 by 6, or as we like to say it, 6 by 80. It's a 6-inch cigar, 80 gauge. Its diameter is 1.25 inches. So this is a jawbreaker.
Yep. That's the lockjaw cigar.
That's right, and they're made bigger. Not many people make them bigger than this, but we have it. It's a fairly popular cigar in our shop among certain people. Mm-hmm. So that's.
And if you took the filler out of there, I think you could maybe plumb something out of your house with it. But that right there, an 80 gauge cigar, that's where the industry has gone in the last 5 years, that bigger is better. I think maybe in the last year and a half, guys, we're starting to see the reverse trend, where Coronas and Lanceros and some thinner gauge cigars are becoming more popular amongst the bloggers and some of the fanboys, if you will.
Cigar geeks, we call them.
Cigar geek.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that. The Lancero still is on, shall we say, an uphill battle. I've noticed the customer reaction. The Lancero is a nice size, a nice cigar. Doesn't take a long time to smoke, but yet it's sort of the kind of cigar that you should take time to smoke because of the nuances that you're going to get in a Lancero. It's almost impossible to put Ligero in a Lancero. If you do, it's got to be really small leaves, that kind of thing, because of what you said about how much that wrapper, and if you put Ligero in a Lancero, I'm sure there are people out there who say they do, you're going to have
This one.
a very strong cigar. Yeah.
Well, Josh, you just mentioned Ligero, and why would Ligero matter? And where do we find Ligero?
So Ligero, when you talk about Ligero, you're talking about the different parts of the plant. Ligero is going to be the very topmost leaves, and when they go to prime or harvest the leaves off of the tobacco plant, they actually take them from the bottom up. So there'll be 5, 6, 7 different primings depending on the plant and the manufacturer. But yeah, so the Ligero is going to be the topmost. It stays on the plant the longest, and when you pick those leaves out from underneath it, they're still getting sunlight. All the nutrients from the stalk are going straight to those leaves. So that's going to be the most nutrient dense, thickest. That's why a lot of people say they have a hard time putting him in Lanceros. It's going to be the thickest, most nutrient dense, most flavorful, most powerful, and nicotine dense section of the plant. So if you see a cigar labeled the double Ligero, for example, you can expect it to be a powerhouse, a very strong, nice nicotine punch to it, very powerful cigar, versus the Viso and Seco, the lower parts of the plant, which are going to have less nutrients, less nicotine, still offer great flavor and stuff, but just they're on the plant less time, so they're getting less of the nutrients.
I think Ligero can also mean the flavor too. You have a lot of, like you said, you have a lot of nutrients, so Ligero is going to bring a lot of flavor to a cigar.
It also doesn't burn well.
No, that's why.
So it slows down some of that production, and that's why Nub became so popular. They packed a lot of Ligero in a smaller size cigar. It's a shorter cigar, but it smokes long, and that will matter also with Ligero.
Right.
Burn time.
Yeah, and also, once again, place that we were recently, he said that if anyone really claims to be making a cigar out of all Ligero, that he doesn't believe it because the cigar won't burn.
No, there's no combustion there.
Right,
with
right.
all Ligero
The
cigar.
leaves wouldn't burn enough. So
Back to your point on Lancero, why it's maybe a tougher sell too. It's not a lot of manufacturers are making it. The molds that they use, they actually do put these cigars into molds when they're forming the cigar and press them down with a big crank. They'll put them in what looks like a 10-count cigar box, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what gives it its perfectly round shape, is the mold. They'll crank them down and press them.
it's to hold that shape, because we don't want to give the impression that the roller is not able to come up with that fantastic shape, because as we've all seen, it's incredible, the consistency and the ability of these rollers to just come up with these wonderfully shaped cigars, whether it be a Parejo or Figurado, and that what that press does is ensure the uniformity of the shape.
And its longevity inside the box and travel.
Right.
You don't want it to grow to be this big around.
It's not like we're using some kind of machine to make sure that we have the shape. These things are in the press not very long.
20 minutes
20 minutes
was in the factory we saw.
Yeah.
20 minutes in the press.
Yeah.
But these molds can get expensive for the
Right.
proprietor.
And if you're not selling a lot of Lanceros, how do you justify the cost of these molds? And how do you, a small manufacturer whose claim to fame may be Coronas and Lanceros is going to take that risk because that's his niche.
Right.
Whereas a large volume manufacturer like Perdomo
Altides, General. You don't see many Lanceros coming from the two big boys.
No, you don't. There are a few Lanceros still being made by Altides, but they don't make many, and they're in lines that are probably going to disappear.
Exactly.
So you do have that. You got to take your hat off to Oliva for making a very nice Lancero.
Delicious.
In a major production line.
Right, exactly.
The Oliva V is a regular production line for them, and they make that Lancero.
The A is a fun size.
Yes, though I found out that one of them that we like here is going to be discontinued, but
This is
that's
which one?
the Alec Bradley curve.
Oh, the Ego.
I mean Ego.
That's
The
discontinued.
Ego.
The broomstick.
It's a tough sell. You know, it's a giant cigar.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
traditional
they're 8 to
old
9.
Cuban style. The traditional Cuban's going to be a lot thinner in gauge
Yeah,
than this.
right,
But the length, it gives you the idea of what the A is. So we talked a little bit about the sizes and the shapes. You know, and when you have these, you know, the torpedo,
Beautiful.
while you would buy a torpedo, you get a great ability to limit or increase your draw with this. And I really like those experiences when it comes to the cigar and how that changes your experience. You know, this same blend in this Vitola smokes differently than the Pyramid does, which is more wide open from the get-go. Another great figurado shape would be the Perfecto. Josh, talk a little bit about this guy. See,
It's a very popular cigar. Short.
One of the things I like about the Perfecto is you start off with that closed foot on there. I'm actually going to take out of the wrapper so I get a good picture.
yeah.
You've got the closed foot on there, so when you light this up, you're going to get a tighter, colder draw. And then as you smoke it, that first little bit, it's going to open up, and you're going to get you know, different flavors as you're smoking through a different ring gauge on the cigar. So it's going to be a different draw, different smoke production, different flavor on it. And then on this Perfecto, it's going to taper back down. So the entire time you're smoking a cigar, you're getting different ring gauges at all times, and that's going to create varied smoking experience throughout the. You know, despite it being a very short cigar, this is the Arturo Fuente Hemingway short story. Being a short cigar, you're still going to get you know, decent change in the way it's smoking all the way through. It's kind of a fun cigar to smoke as you experience different things the entire way that you're smoking it.
And I found that the more experienced smoker starts to delve into the figurados and how this works a little bit differently. So it's not for the beginner to appreciate the actual changes, because at first it can be frustrating when you have a Perfecto and you're lighting it and nothing's really happening. But the glory is when it opens up to that full and then tapers backwards. I really like that experience. But that's for the more experienced palate.
Right, and even complexity can be different from cigar to cigar. I think one thing that makes a cigar what we might call complex isn't even necessarily a lot of changes throughout the cigar, because too many can be too almost assaulting on the senses. But what you get is you pick up while you're smoking the first third or the second third, what you're finding is different flavors from that particular section. So that you know, in a Corojo, you might pick up some sweetness, but you also will pick up some, especially in Nicaraguan, I think, you'll pick up some peppery notes. And you don't think of pepper and sweetness going together, but you get it in a cigar.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of tasting notes. We can talk all day about what types of flavors and what you're tasting, and that's also subjective to what you have. I know all of us aren't fans of reading the reviews before we smoke a cigar, and the reason that is, you know, if they tell us it tastes like cedar and leather, more chances are your brain's going to pick that up, and you're going to be looking for those flavors and making that on your own. So,
Well, we played baseball, and I don't know about you, but I never had an urge to smoke my glove.
no, I used to chew on the glove, though.
Yeah, okay.
They're good to chew on. So let's jump a little bit into some etiquette when we're smoking these cigars. So we have a fantastic cigar with a nice wrapper. It's made from a country that we like, and we're really enjoying the experience. And we'll each throw our 2 cents in, maybe bring up your favorite etiquette piece. But my favorite, personally, my favorite argument is to leave the band on or to take the band off. You see people take it out of the cellophane. So you take, you know, this is a cello wrap cigar. You take it out of the cellophane. Well, obviously on this Arandoza, if we take it out of the cellophane here, you have to take this band off, guys. I mean, there's no etiquette in that. I mean, that's called a foot band, right? That's called a foot band, and that needs to be removed before you smoke the cigar. My rule of thumb is I never take my bands off right away, and the only reason I don't do that is I don't want any chance of me destroying the wrapper that is so precious to me on the cigar and your experience. If anyone out there has ever smoked a cigar where the wrapper comes off, you're completely doing it wrong. It's not how it's supposed to be done. The wrapper needs to stay on.
Right.
It is most of your smoking experience. It's terrible when the wrapper leaves you. It's why we tell you to not cut it below that shoulder that we talked about in earlier episodes. But the wrapper is very key. So as the cigar heats up and burns, that's when this wrapper becomes the glue that's actually holding this wrapper on, there's a tendency maybe a little spot got on your wrapper. If you rip it off without heating the glue, you can tear that wrapper right along with it. It's not because I want to show everybody that I'm smoking a Room 101 Master Collection, Monstro. That's part of it, though, too. Some people like to leave their bands on to make sure that they tell everybody what they're smoking. But for me, it's truly about the enjoying of the cigar.
I'm enjoying a diamond crown.
Right, exactly. But right now, it's heated to the point where I'm not going to burn through it. It comes off super easy. It doesn't damage my cigar. Leave the bands on, people, until you've heated up the band, and it removes easy from the cigar. You're peeling the cold thing off. I hate that. When I watch people do it, I cringe.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for a tear in the wrapper.
Well, an interesting thing that we learned recently was that when you take that band off, there could be a tiny piece of glue that comes over and is actually grabbing the wrapper and ripping it. But more than that, you could, a lot of times, I've taken a band off before and I've actually seen a chunk of the wrapper come with it. But we learned recently that what can happen is there may not be any glue contacting it, but just the act of taking it off, you're creating these tiny little micro stress fractures in there that could, it doesn't seem like it would do much, little tears that aren't really, seeable by the human eye, but it could still affect your smoking experience and weaken the wrapper there and, create a weird funky situation with the draw, affect the flavor a little bit. So
tunneling could happen.
They're leaves.
Yep.
They're leaves. They're paper thin. I mean, you shouldn't tear anything off it until it's completely and properly ready to go.
Yeah.
What's your favorite etiquette?
My favorite etiquette thing?
Yeah.
Well, I know there's some
example.
There's some people who think it's just fine to go into your local shop, and I know books on this that it will even mention that it's okay to go in the shop, open the humidor, and go in, pick up a cigar, and run it under your nose. Well, if you're going to buy it, that's not a bad idea. But
it's part of the experience, of smelling the cigar after you've purchased it, getting all the smells and scents and everything.
After you buy it.
After you buy it.
If you have especially something like this.
Right.
This has no cellophane on it.
That's a naked cigar.
And I'm going to run that under my nose and then decide I don't want it and put it back in the box. I'm sorry, but even I don't want to take a mercy smoke out of that cigar after I see someone run it under their
And something I noticed too, exactly. I mean, you can get some germs on the cigar that we don't want to have happen. And also, you see how he picked up the cigar. He handled it with the band and not with the wrapper that it's exposed. Not as big a deal on a cigar that's in cellophane.
No.
A huge deal
those
on
are
a naked
porous.
cigar. Exactly.
And our hands, we come in contact with so much. We tell our kids to wash their hands before a meal or wash their hands after they sneeze or whatever, or that kind of thing. Well, how do you know that the guy who picked up that cigar beforehand had clean hands?
You smelt it, you bought it.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. I think.
One way to do it.
Josh, what's your favorite etiquette piece? What would you recommend out there?
Something I would not do, and this is kind of a little thing, and it's kind of counterintuitive. People don't realize it. Cigars aren't combustible. If I stop smoking this cigar for 3-4 minutes, it's probably going to go out. I'm going to have to relight. So a lot of times when I see people, they'll finish up a cigar. They'll think, I don't want this thing just burning in the ashtray or going in the trash and burning the place down. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to do it like a cigarette, and I'm going to put it out that way. That can create kind of an offensive smell. If you've ever done it with like a big range A cigar or a cigar that's really hot, it's not the most pleasant smell when there's other people sitting around enjoying their cigars. So the best way to put out a cigar is to simply set it down. Like I said, 3 to 4 minutes, that thing's going to be out. And then maybe a final thing as far as etiquette goes, I see a lot of these articles online and stuff like that where they, really specific things, they absolutely insist that you don't take the band off, or they absolutely insist that you you cut it a certain way. They say, definitely do not dip your cigar in cognac, stuff like that. For cigars, it's kind of, it's all personal preference on what you enjoy. So my favorite etiquette is, short of shoving the cigar in your nose before you buy it, or, doing that number and affecting other people's smoking experience, you can pretty much do whatever you want to your cigar once you've bought it. If you want to dip it in cognac, great. If you want to cut it, up here and cut it in half and smoke it in 2 different things, I wouldn't recommend it, but sure, do whatever the hell you want. It's completely up to you to do whatever you want with the cigar.
I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, it's once it's in your hands and you want to enjoy it a certain way, whatever enhances that experience.
How you cut it? I punched it. You guys
cut them off.
Guillotine
Yeah.
cut it.
Exactly.
I bite the cap off from time to
Well,
time.
to keep our cigars, after we go home, we make that big purchase, and we didn't put it underneath our nose, guys, and we grabbed it by the band, and we selected some cigars with a Nicaraguan wrapper on it, or a San Andrean wrapper, or anything else you can think of. We have our cigars, now we got to take them home. What do? The first thing we do is we toss them in the refrigerator, right, Joe?
Absolutely not. I don't know how that got started. I don't know why putting them in the refrigerators that people think that's a good idea. It's one of the worst things you can do. It's actually a drier environment than probably most places in your house, and it's going to dry the cigars out. They'll be crisp. They're going to burn funny. It's going to affect the flavor. Not recommended. So what people will do is you'll use different kinds of humidors. This is a nice humidor right here. Oftentimes, nice humidors will be lined with Spanish cedar. The reason they use Spanish cedar is because it's it doesn't have a strong aroma to it like some woods would that'll impart its flavor into the cigars. The little bit of aroma that does come with Spanish cedar is an enjoyable kind of it's thought to enhance cigars. Some cigars come wrapped in cedar, and the idea is, one idea is that it looks pretty on the shelf, and another idea is that it actually imparts a certain amount of flavor into the cigar. So Spanish cedar is one that's commonly used, but certainly not a requirement. And the key thing is the humidity level. You want to have a proper humidity level. There's tons of different methods and ways to keep it done. One of our favorites, the Boveda packs here. These things come in prepackaged things. You just take it out of the plastic, throw it in the humidor, close it up, keep it closed. And ideally, this should be an airtight container, more or less. And this will, distribute its moisture into the air and keep the cigars right in that sweet spot between 65 and 74, 75, somewhere in there is where you want the
it
cigars.
depends on
Rule of
whether
thumb is 70%.
How do
but
you like your cigar?
if you like the cigar to be a little bit drier, you can go around 65, 68. If you like it to be a little spongier, you can go up to 74 or so.
So the higher the humidity level, the spongier the cigar is going to be. The lower the humidity level, the drier the cigar is going to be.
Right.
When it's higher humidity, it actually smokes cooler and slower. It has more moisture to go through. When it's drier, it actually burns a little hotter, and that's your preference again.
Right.
That's why they make things from 65 to 74.
Right.
If you start to go below 60%, you start to dry your cigar. If your cigar gets dried out, we talked about this earlier. It's one of the only plants in the world that after it's cut from the stalk, it will still take on moisture. But there is
Works
a
like
point
a
of no
sponge.
return. When that sponge turns into a solid rock, that happens with cigars. So it's very important that we keep our cigars in the proper storage so that we can keep them forever.
That's right. Your wrappers will crack, and then you have a bad experience because without the wrapper, you're smoking on a binder, and the binders, as you said, they aren't the best leaves, and they were picked for their reason, their place in the cigar, both in blending and in combustion.
And then in the Northeast here, Ed, it's cold 6 months of the year. Should we leave our cigars out in the cold? What could temperature do to our cigars?
No, we can have a lot of damage, I think, to a cigar, especially in the cold weather that we experience here. You still want to try to keep I like to say, usually room temperature
Right.
is the best way to keep it. What you find comfortable in your home is usually between 65 and 75 degrees. Some people, I like to keep my place a little cooler, but that is also a good way to maintain your humidity in your humidor, because if you have this fluctuation of temperature, it doesn't seem to do well on a cigar.
No, constant temperature and constant humidity is what keeps it going. And you can age cigars indefinitely if you have them in the proper storage container. Other ways to store the cigars. Plastic is actually a great tool. It's a non-porous. They're usually airtight. This particular one here is a Zycar. Holds 10 cigars. You open that up. You use a regulated solution. Now, the difference between a regulated solution that has some glycol in it, it's actually RH made, so it will not put off more than 70% humidity. It actually has the chemical properties to stop humidifying, whereas distilled water, which we use often, will not do that unless you have a gauge or something electronic that's going to shut off that humidity, which you'll find in your brick and mortar stores will have some type of temperature and control of the humidity levels they pump out. This little sponge is not going to be able to tell you, oh no, there's too much distilled water in here. The cigars will continually take them on. The higher humidity levels we have, the more chances you have of maybe the cigar spoiling, which is a problem with mold.
Yes.
So making too much humidity is also a problem. So there is a sweet spot that needs to be maintained. There's a lot of ways to do it. There's Yuma bags that actually have little Boveda packs inside of them. There's water pillows that use distilled water to keep your cigars moist.
You can use this on water pillows too.
Exactly. So you have an RH solution that can be used from Cigar there, which is a nice product.
That's another thing we didn't touch on is if you're going to go the route of using water, you want to use distilled water because there's no extra anything in there. If you use tap water, if you have like one of those sponge systems and you use tap water, you're pretty likely to end up with some mold situations, and mold and cigars do not make good friends. So distilled water, you want to stay away from spring water. You want to stay away from tap water. Distilled water is going to be the way to go. It costs like 60 cents for a gallon of distilled water. It'll last you for a while.
It may sound like a tobacconist way to sell more cigars, but in a larger humidor, it's easier to regulate your humidity levels by having at least half full humidor.
Yeah, if you have a 50 count humidor, we recommend you have 25 cigars
in it. You don't just.
And a good way to do that too would be get some filler cigars, guys. Buy a bundle of cheap ones, line the bottom of that, so they're going to maintain humidity.
Give them to your
put your good
friends.
cigars. Give those ones.
Give those to your friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Give them to the friends.
The
that come
guys
over
who
that
don't know
smoke.
anything about cigars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The people that don't smoke cigars, give them those. Oh, these are some great cigars. They just don't have the wrapper on them.
They haven't watched this show, so they don't know.
That's
anything.
right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. We did. We always do. For Ed Brandyberry and Josh Mills, I'm Josh Eagle. You just watched Inside the Humidor. Go out there and burn one. Talked a little bit about cigar storage. We have some great products that can help you enhance your smoking and keeping your cigars preserved for a long time so you can enjoy them year after year. Quickly right here, this is a great little box for traveling around, guys.
Yeah.
This is a Cigar,
Indestructible.
guaranteed for life. Just happens to have the Smokestack logo on there. You got to have that. Still guaranteed by Cigar, though.
That's right.
This is a 10 count humidor. You can carry your lighter, carry a few cigars around there. All you have to do is fill the little disc. What we fill it with.
Comes in a 5 count, 10 count, 15 count. If you're really greedy and like to carry around a suitcase, we could even get you a bigger one.
Absolutely. Cigar propylene glycol. This solution here retails for what, about $8? Works
It'll last
great.
you for forever.
It'll last you a long time. You drip a little bit inside of that humidor. A couple drops goes a long way. Keeps that maintained. Again, we want to keep it at room temperature the best we can. Also have larger options, some more display pieces. This humidor here is a 50 count humidor. It's got a drawer underneath. You can see inside. It's great, lined with Spanish cedar. It's actually a hardwood, guys. It's mahogany family, nice and hard. Still takes on a bit of moisture, so it keeps your, when these expand and swell, that's what makes your airtight happen. Close that sucker up. You can use a couple different things. We've talked about Boveda. For $5, you can set it and forget it. You take this out of the package, you toss it inside the humidor. It actually has a QR code on the back. If everyone's familiar with those, you scan it with your smartphone. It tells you how many you're going to need and how many cigars you have inside. I will say that wood's going to take more Boveda packs than your plastic wood.
That's right. Well, that size humidor would take a minimum of 2 of those Boveda packs. You'd need
Probably more like 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah.
But they'll last you a few months for $15, and you don't have to worry about it. If you have $400 worth of cigars in there, what's another $20 to make sure that they're maintained? You don't have to throw them in the garbage.
All right. Another thing you might enjoy that's handy is this mug, Perdomo coffee mug, that actually has a rest for a cigar on the handle. For $14.99, you can drink more coffee, and you probably should at one time, and have your cigar handy. Nice place to rest.
Well, we've stored our cigars. We need to get them lit. Josh, what do we got?
Well, there's nothing wrong with lighting a cigar with a Bic, but if you're going to fire up a nice premium product, it's nice to have a nice lighter to do it with. We've got this guy right here, which is a great table lighter. Don't recommend this carrying around in your pockets all day long, but nice quad flame lighter. This would be a great one to keep at home in the lounge if you had one, or fire up cigars on the patio. We've got some branded lighters here. If you've got a favorite brand, this is a Rocky Patel. We've got Alec Bradley and a couple other ones. This would be a great way to go. And then we have Vector and Cigars. Vector is one of my favorite brands. This is a nice quad flame lighter for 50 bucks. Flips open there. Great way to fire up a stick. We've
Some
got
of those have cutters on the
Yeah,
bottom.
does that particular one have anything?
Yes, it does. So right here on the bottom, if you're going golfing or something like that, there's a great one because it's going to fire up nice and easy in the wind with the 4 flames. And then also here on the bottom, you can flip out the punch there. You can punch a cigar with that, so that way you don't have to carry a lighter around with you. Nice little all-in-one. That's one way to go. And then this is a cool one. Actually uses coils on there instead of a straight butane method. So this is a wind-resistant lighter. It's going to fire up. You could light it up if I had butane in there, and you could blow on it. It's going to stay lit. So those are both excellent ways to light up a nice cigar with.
And they retail between, you're looking between 40 and, this great lighter here that he was just showing you, the windproof, $30. Can't beat that. You can get a quad flame, 50 bucks, right? Can't beat that.
Right.
Quad flame, that's how we like to get it done. Like Tim the
It's the
Toolman
American
Town.
way.
Yeah.
Get it done
Straight
fast.
power. Light that thing. Also has some cheaper options in the store too. $22 gets you a quad flame off-brand,
Yeah.
something good to throw into the golf
That's right.
bag. So it's all here. Thank you.